shadows in the sky, sun behind the clouds, darkness falls. But I'll keep chasing, I won't say goodbye. Just wanna fly up in the air. And let the sunshine guide me there. Through the clouds, through the night. Just wanna fly with all my might. Airplanes passing by, lights in the sky. I can't help but wonder where they'll fly. As the solar eclipse takes the world in shades of gray, I'll keep soaring, I won't lose my way. Just wanna fly up in the air. Let the sunshine guide me there. Through the clouds, through the night. Just wanna fly with all my might. The darkness comes, the light fades away. But in the sky, I'll find my way. Chasing shadows and chasing dreams. In the air, I'm truly free. Just wanna fly up in the air. And let the sunshine guide me there. Through the clouds, through the night. Just wanna fly with all my might. The darkness comes.
Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Happy Wednesday.
Hey. Holy cow, look at all the people we got on here. We're supposed to have 42.
Lots of folks.
Yeah. So who do we all have here? Wheezy, you're here.
Yep, I'm here.
G,
Present.
Dr. G.
Dr. G.
We got Paramotor Cowboy. Looks like he's driving. Looks like
Sleeping.
Rose. And Paramotor Princess Sam is in the middle.
Yep.
She's froze. And we got Michelle Burns. She's been a past guest. We got Brandon. He's down in Texas. And we got Jay Land down from Texas also. Hello, guys.
Hey.
Hey, Jay.
Hello.
So we wanted to talk about the total eclipse
Yes.
that happened. And who wants to go first? If we can get maybe Sam and Paramotor Cowboy. I don't know if we're going to get them now, because they're driving from New York, where they flew, and they're in Wyoming now. Sam, do you want to go first? And we lost her. All right.
Must be in the best spot.
Michelle or Brandon, how about you?
Michelle, you can go ahead. No, actually, Michelle, you can go. You can pick.
Okay. Oh my. So we're talking about the eclipse. It was really cool. I was up in Dayton, Ohio, where the crew is usually at. There was a big para party out there. I think in Ohio, totality partial eclipse was at like 2 o'clock that day, and then 3:10 p.m. was the totality, and it was really cool getting to just slowly watch the moon go across the sun. And then right before totality, it was the craziest thing, because it looked as if it was like 20 minutes past like evening, because it got so dark and it got cold. Like it was like almost 72 here that day, but like, man, it got cold. It was really, really cool though. It was like such a surreal moment. So for the totality, I decided not to fly, just because I just wanted to be in the moment and on the ground and just in that moment. There was some people that were flying. I was there with Leah Catullo. She came up from Florida to hang out with us, so that was really cool. So we kind of just hung out on the ground and was watching the eclipse. But it was just a really surreal moment, to be completely honest. I seen the one back in 2017. This one was just way cooler. I just remember there was a moment that, we're all looking through the little glasses, and then I just remember looking up, like, wait, guys, we do not need the glasses anymore. It was just really, really cool looking up, and, like, it's just there. And then I just remember at the bottom of the sun, though, there was a little solar flare at the bottom peeking through, and it was just really, really cool. I don't have words other than it was just a really surreal, like, 3 minutes that we got to experience totality of just being in the moment and just kind of chilling. But as soon as it started going away, I was like, go get the motor, let's go, we're gonna fly. But it was like really cool afterwards. As soon as it started getting a little bit brighter out, I went and grabbed my motor, and it was crazy how chill the weather and the winds got during and like after totality, because I think we flew probably like 30 to 40 minutes after totality, and then like an hour or two later there was like thermals popping and everything, so it was kind of crazy. I've never flown midday, so that was my only exception for my first time flying midday. But it was really, really cool. It was just the coolest experience, and I'm really happy that I got to experience it with some of my paramotor family, so it was really, really cool.
Well, that's cool. Yeah.
Did you notice any difference in the birds or anything like that? Any chirps? Did you hear any birds or anything like that?
No, for us, I mean, there was just a small group of us, and when it was happening, I mean, honestly, there was people flying, so all you would hear is like the motors flying. But for me, I mean, there were birds and stuff out before the eclipse, before totality, but while, totality, I don't remember seeing any birds in the air. So they must have been like, oh, it's getting dark in the middle of the day. And then after they came back out, but during totality, I don't recall seeing any birds or anything, or hearing much, because we had motors. We had people buzzing around us.
Yeah. Because they say the birds and the animals will act like it's nighttime. They think it's nighttime.
Yeah.
That's what I heard
Here
one
it was.
man say too.
I think that was the most surreal thing about it. It was just like slowly, it just got darker and darker. And during totality, we all just stood there like, what in the world? Like, this is the craziest, most coolest moment.
Wow.
Of just how dark it got. Like, it literally, like when the pilots that were flying with our strobes on. So it was just crazy seeing it looked like it was past sunset. Some of the pictures that I have of Chris like launching in the background with the totality, and then the background of it just looks like, I mean, the whole background of that picture is nothing but orange, and it's just like, it looks like it's sunsets way done past and we're still flying. But it was really, really cool. I'm really glad that I got to experience seeing it in totality, and being with my paramotor people. It was really fun.
Yeah.
That's cool.
All right. Sam, what about you? Do we have you?
I have service, yes.
Okay.
What's the exact question that you want me to answer?
So you guys went to New York?
Yeah, so we drove from Nevada to New York to experience the eclipse from the sky.
Okay.
And you made a couple stops along the way, right?
Yeah, so you listen. So I stopped in Omaha, Nebraska, where I'm originally from, to have lunch with my mom, and then shot over. So we got from Nevada to New York within under 2.5 days. So one of us was driving, one of us was sleeping. Flip-flopped, got there, and then we got there actually a day earlier than we had planned on being there. So once we got there, we had an extra day to kind of figure out our launch area. We were originally going to go to Maine, but the weather just looked better thermically and less wind in Oswego, New York.
All right. So what launch site did you end up with?
So these really kind people, their names are Fred and Diane Burton, and then their son Jeremy. We ended up just knocking on their door, and they said yes to us. They were like the fifth house that actually said yes to us to launch. But it was the most perfect location for sure. And this is a time lapse of it. This is from the Insta360. So I have another one of the GoPro on Jake's Instagram has the GoPro version. The GoPro we kept at the exposures at like what your eyes see, so it turns totally black. With the Insta, it didn't go as dark as what you actually saw in person. Like it was so much darker than this that like you couldn't see in front of you.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll try to pull his up then too.
Yeah, it's on my story if you click on it through that way.
Okay. So where should I go?
So if you just
The
click my
profile
story,
picture.
so like click my profile picture. Yep, and then so that's just me sharing, and then the next one will have his, and then you should be able to click it. But if
Oh,
you'll just let it play right here, it'll play. See that's what it looked like before.
oh
Yeah,
wow.
that's what it looked like from GoPro view when we left the exposure on. Very normal eyesight.
Wow.
So you couldn't see in front of you.
Wow.
Huh.
But so basically what we did was we got to Fred and Diane's property the day of, about 2 hours before, just because we want to make sure everything was running properly with the motors and everything. Driving 3,000 miles, you have no idea what can happen with your engine, so we let them run for a bit before filling them up and taking off. But once we got set up, I put on so many layers. It was gonna be so cold. It wasn't as cold as some of the other flights I've been on, but it was already like less than 50 degrees on the ground. So I went all the way to 13,000 feet. So I had 3 pairs of pants on, 4 pairs of socks, heat warmers, feet warmers. I have an electric thing that goes in a belly thing for my hands. It's a battery pack that connects to it that keeps it warm. Had my hair mask, 2 face masks, like everything to keep me warm because I knew I was going to be freezing up there. And the initial plan was, so the wind was coming from the south and southwest, depending on uppers, like anywhere from 6 to like 8 grand. It was coming from directly south. So at that point, I had my altimeter, so I just faced directly south versus southwest where the sun was coming from. And so I took off immediately and just immediately headed southwest and just climbed the whole entire time. It was like the totality was at 3:21ish in Oswego. So we took off at 2:50 was the time I think I got off. So I had about 30 minutes of climb time, full climb time. I was shooting to get above the clouds, but couldn't make it in time. I decided not to after about 20 minutes of climbing, and I was at 10 grand, and I still wasn't above 14,000 feet. Or I was at 13, 14 at the totality time, but the clouds were at like 16, so they were like right there. Like I was so close to them, but I was like, I don't want to try to go through them while totality's happening. One, because there were little pockets that I could still see the sky every once in a while. So I was aiming for that pocket, but I was like, I don't want to try to get above them for totality. I want to just experience it now, like enjoy the moment, look around and everything. You could slowly see it start coming from the west and come all the way across, and it was just like this slow little like darkness. And at like 3:15 is when I put my strobe on, because I only put the strobe on during the dark part. Once it was back to daylight, I didn't have it on anymore. But I put the strobe on and I was like, oh, this is happening. It's gonna get really dark. It's already starting to get dark because it was like at 97% totality or whatever. And then once it hit 100%, it was just this ring of like golden, like sunsetty, because I was so high. I think that was the biggest part of it, was that I was so high in the sky that I still got the little golden around the whole edge, because I could tell when the parts were in totality. Like I saw like it move across the globe. Like I saw the totality happen and where it was fully on me and when it was off of me. So it was really, really cool being that high to see it.
You had to feel flying at 13,000 feet during totality in total darkness.
That was another thing. I guess there was this really weird like weightlessness feeling I had right when it got super dark. Like the difference between 99% totality and 100% is so minuscule, like on the camera, but like in person with your own eye and everything,
Yeah.
it was just like this weird, like there was no difference in thermic activity. There was no difference in how my wing was acting. I had my hands in my pocket most of the time that whole time because I was so cold, and I was just enjoying it, viewing everything. But it was just this weird, like there was like you snap your fingers and like your gut kind of flinches a little like as soon as it got so dark, because I've never flown that, like most people have never flown in the dark like that. And so I it was just like this weird like weightlessness, like you're this tiny little human in like
Yeah.
just under a canopy 13,000 feet in the sky in total darkness, and all you got is this tiny little strobe going right behind your head. So yeah, it was definitely a surreal like feeling of understanding of
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
who I am in this world.
And what about paramotor cowboy?
I muted.
All
Okay.
right, so yeah, I mean, Samantha explained a lot there, and I think Michelle is saying how did you go to the one in 2017, Michelle?
Yeah, I've seen the one in 2017.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this one is 4 minutes, I believe, 15 seconds, and the one in 17 was just over 2 minutes, which means the circumference of the circle was like double as big, which means it was a lot darker than that one in 2017. So it really was a different experience. I also went to that one in 2017, and we were a little disappointed to find out the day of that there were going to be clouds all over. But then after seeing a lot of other people's videos, I'm kind of glad we got the clouds because it just made the whole experience incredibly dark. You know, because we had the overcast from the clouds that were clearly above 16,000, as well as the totality. And so it's just such a amazing experience flying in the dark. I did not think it was going to be that dark. And I just remember looking down, having my feet dangle. And if anyone has ever flown an airplane at night, like an actual airliner, you look down and you just, all you see is lights, right? We could not see the ground. That's how dark it was. We only saw lights from buildings, cars, etc. So it's definitely different than flying like 30 minutes after sunset. I mean, we're talking dark, dark. So definitely a cool feeling. I remember that 4 minutes was like the fastest 4 minutes ever because you're just enjoying every little moment. But still so cool. There was a lot of traffic in the air, which I don't think a lot of people were accounting for. Does anybody use the app Gaggle? Because that app is the most amazing app ever because it literally tells you air traffic that's coming in your direction. So there was a big like 737 coming in our direction, and then it turned on like a dime right at the last minute, which is, I don't know if you saw our strobes or whatever, but that was, I mean, it was a freak out for me. It was a freak out for Samantha, and then Samantha ended up having two more close plane encounters. I think she posted one on her Instagram, which is, I don't know if anybody's ever had a close encounter with a plane, it is scary.
That night you had that day you had a close encounter?
Oh yeah, well Samantha had two. One of them she didn't see coming. I saw it coming, and I just radioed her, and apparently she told me later she didn't get the transmission, but it went right behind her, and that video can be seen on Instagram. And then the 737, I believe it was. I don't know planes. It was a big plane, so that one came. All I saw was a blinking light until it was like close enough to where it just completely turned. So I'd never seen like a 737 make a U-turn, but it made a U-turn. So I don't know if it saw us or what, but yeah, that was very scary. So yeah, a lot of traffic in the air and super dark. That's all I can say. It's just one of the most amazing experiences ever.
Wow.
I'm wondering if you had a chance to look at airspace. Do you know what airspace you were in?
Oh, it was just Class G. It was like no airspace. We were in Oswego, New York, which is just on the very southeast end of Lake Ontario. My guess is that maybe it was a passenger airplane that was shuttling people to view the eclipse. So that's all I can think. Why else would it be? Would it be flying in that area and make a U-turn?
I don't know. We had a here at my house. We live about 5 miles from it's a military base, Camp Shelby, and they have some planes that come in and out of there. But they had a I don't really know what kind. It was a big military plane, and it had a near miss right over our house with a small aircraft, and they both turned right to get away from each other. And the noise that that airplane made when it was turning was so scary. It was awesome, the noise that it made. The little plane, I couldn't hear it at all, but that big plane, the U-turn that it made was, oh, it was amazing. You don't forget that sound when you hear it.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely wild to see. The plane didn't come close to hitting us, but it was maybe a whole mile or two away. But when a plane travels at 500 miles an hour, I mean, it
Yeah.
still felt pretty close.
Yeah.
Anytime I see those really big planes, where we fly up in Dayton here in Ohio, there's the Dayton airport somewhere up above us, and man, there's some big planes that come through there. And as soon as I see them, I'm like, I'm out. Goodbye. I'm going this way.
They're scary. They're scary.
Oh,
I don't want to get close.
this big plane that he's talking about, it's right at the end of totality. You can see it in the time lapse actually too, of me pressing my radio comm to Jake. But if I ever end up sharing the real audio from that, I go, there's a huge plane heading straight towards me at my altitude. Because I was right below cloud base, right? Because I had decided not to go above them or anything. Like I just had killed I didn't kill it, but idled my engine from cloud base all the way down, right? So I only had 3 minutes of dropping altitude, like less than 1,000 feet of drop of altitude in that 3.5 minutes of totality. So by the time totality was over, I had my head on a swivel, but all I could see was this tiny little light in the distance start blinking, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. Why is somebody else this high? Like, what the heck? And then it started getting closer and closer and closer. I was like, oh my god, that is a huge plane. It wasn't just like a tiny Cessna 182. It was a huge plane. Like Jake and I talked about it after. Like, it had to have been a plane for the eclipse purpose, because it was probably still coming at me until totality, because it was right at the end of totality. Like, as soon as the end of totality happened was when I saw them veer off and turn. So it kind of seems like the pilots or something were distracted at the totality, and then all of a sudden look straight out and see my flashing strobe. Like, I always fly with strobe lights if you're gonna fly in the dark at all.
Do you guys fly with gaggle at all?
Yeah, so I had gaggle on too, and it had notified that, like, that's how I saw
It did
like
notify
realize it was, yeah. So that's how we
Awesome.
have the higher one on there, not
Mhm.
but it notified me. It said 7:37 or 7:47 or something coming from your 12 o'clock. So it was coming right from directly in front of me at my altitude. Like, that's what made me realize it was a bigger plane, because I was like, oh, that is not just like a Cessna or something up there with me. It's a
It
huge
doesn't give you
plane.
much time either, does it?
Yeah. And then so I radioed Jake, and I'm like, I don't know where you're at, because we just kind of, for totality, we kind of just let ourselves do our own thing. He was doing some fun stuff, and I just kind of sat there and enjoyed it. So I was like, I don't know where you're at. Like, are you getting hit by a plane right now? Like, I can't hear you. And then we finally made contact again. I don't know what happens there, but I was really nervous, because I was like, where, I can't hear you, I can't find you. It just was dark. Like, what happened during that 3.5 minutes type of thing. But he was fine. And then we were heading back to, like, kind of play around near LZ, and the beach of Lake Ontario, and I was coming down and I saw a tiny little plane in the distance, and I was like, "Oh, there's a tiny little plane," and I kind of followed it like on my Insta. I like you can't see it, but I can see it like this little white dot. It looks like a white dot on the Insta, but it was a tiny little plane. But I was distracted following that guy, and then all of a sudden you see a plane fly right beneath me. Like, I swear to you, it was less than 200 feet. Did not warn me on goggled, nothing. It came from behind me, and I was distracted by seeing another little tiny plane. But
Mm.
I swear to you, it was under 200 feet right below me, and the Insta and the GoPros make it look so much further away and so much tinier. But that one was like a Cessna, so it was a decent sized tiny plane, but 200 feet below me, and all you see is it comes from behind me and comes kind of towards out by like my like 10 o'clock, and all of a sudden you see me see it, my eyes widen, and I'm like, call Jake. Get back on the phone with Jake. And it was just kind of like so much air traffic, but I'm just happy we were all safe and using gaggle. I think using gaggle is a big part of it, so making sure we're staying safe in the sky and flying in correct places and having other people aware of where we're at.
Hopefully you decided to land shortly after.
I was actually having engine problems too during this. So I think after idling for so long, because I idled from like 13.5 all the way down to like 2 grand before I actually throttled up again. And when I throttled up, it wasn't like a normal like the revving up the engine. It was like a chug 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 chug, like I was running out of gas or something. And I was like, no way am I gonna have an engine out right now, like on my Eclipse flight, no way. But after 3 or 4 seconds, it just kind of turned to normal again, and I was like, oh, okay, we're good. So I went and
Sounds like
played around.
carb icing.
What was that?
It sounds like you had carb icing.
Carb icing? Is that from idling so long?
Yeah, it happens in GA planes a lot too. They have a thing called carb heat where they'll take some air over the exhaust and pipe it into the carburetors to keep the ice from forming. At the throat of the carburetor, you get the Venturi effect, and as the fuel goes through there or the air goes through there at different speeds, it'll build ice and it obstructs the airflow, and it basically acts like it robs your motor of power. It'll be real sluggish, or it'll stutter, and it's kind of freaky when you get it. Even worse if you're in a GA airplane and you get carb icing.
Really?
Pucker factor goes up.
So I have a question about this then. So because after that happened the one time, it cycled through or whatever, and it sounded normal, and I was like, okay, so like I'm fine now. Like let me so the Lake Ontario was right there, so we had unclipped to be able to fly next to it, and then we both had floats on, so we were completely unclipped and flying along the shoreline, and then all of a sudden I do one toss across the shoreline, and I throttle up, and it did the same thing. I was like, all right, nope, we're not going to retry this again. We're going back to LZ, and I landed immediately. Like, I wasn't going to... I gained as much altitude as I needed to land and went back to LZ and landed. I haven't turned on my motor again since that. So it happened twice on that flight. So the first time right after idling for so long, and then the second time right after I had been, like, staying right above shoreline, hovering, and then throttling up.
Like John Wayne said, it could be that it was just loading up as well. There's a couple of things that can cause it. Usually, if you're at altitude with lower temperatures, is when you're more susceptible to carb icing. So, yeah, I try to avoid prolonged glides at idle. I'll flip the throttle every now and then just to kind of keep it from doing that.
What engines and things do everyone fly? Does everyone fly?
I have a Maverick with a Moster. 185.
Moster 185.
Brandon, Michelle?
Yeah, same here. I've got a Moster 185 on a Zenith.
I'm still flying an Atom 80, guys.
I love my
I
Atom 80.
haven't flown a 185 yet, but I'm looking forward to it when I get the chance.
We're both
Some of us aren't as lucky to be that light to fly an Atom 80.
I'm
Yeah.
really small. That's the thing. I don't really need all that go-go juice, but I do want to fly at 185. I'm pretty small.
I think the Atom 80 had at one point, or might still be known for icing, carb icing. Actually, I don't know. I think it's got a different size airbox or carb or something, or at least it used to. I don't know if it's still a thing or not. But you mentioned carb icing. The first thing I thought was Atom 80, but I don't know. You have to talk to someone
I
more.
haven't had any issues like that so far with my motor, so
Yeah, it's probably like low temperatures and high humidity and um, idling things like that. But I'm not an expert on it at all.
Yeah, you mentioned you were up by the cloud base, so you're up in higher relative humidity up by the clouds, so you can pick up more, and it's colder, so it's more susceptible up in that area.
That makes sense because I was so confused because we had let them run for like a good 30 minutes before that flight, and it sounded fine on takeoff. Like it didn't seem abnormal or anything. The air was really, really like it took me a long time. Like it took Jake like no time to get up, but it took me a lot of running to get up. But popping up the canopy was super easy. But yeah, I don't know. It had to maybe be carb icing from that then, being that high up to next to the cloud base.
So Samantha, what frame do you have your Atom 80 on?
I have a Moster 185.
Oh, a Moster, okay. And
Yeah,
what
power
frame?
to fly Moster 185.
Okay, cool. That's
Yeah.
a nice setup. And Jake,
Yeah, we have we have the same
Yeah.
exact thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we both have the titanium, the Cronus RS titanium hoop as well around them.
So I wanna hear Brandon's story. Did you fly during the eclipse?
Yeah, I did. So I was pretty excited about it. I'm trying to think of who it was. I think it was my buddy Chad. I think he's the one that mentioned, getting together and doing a big eclipse flight. And when I heard him say that, I was like, man, I didn't think about that. I'd love to see the eclipse from the air. I was just excited to see it on the ground. And as soon as he said that, I was like, okay, I got to book my day off and make sure I can do it and hope the weather's good. Um, and the week leading up to it, the weather was not looking great, but it's still a week out, so I was just hopeful that something would happen. Wasn't going to cancel my time off either way. I wanted to see the eclipse either way. Um, so yeah, the days leading up to it was looking like it wasn't going to be great. There were thunderstorms in the forecast off and on. I think we had rain over the weekend before. It actually thunderstormed yesterday. Um, yeah, the day of the eclipse or the day before the eclipse, it was looking even worse. The forecast was showing 15 to 20-mile-an-hour winds, and just wasn't looking like it was going to be in the cards. Most people had bowed out at that point. Just the forecast looked so horrible that people weren't even going to make it out. And so I went to bed on Sunday night thinking it wasn't going to happen. I'm in North Texas, by the way, just north of Dallas area, and around here it's pretty thermally. I mean, sometimes 2 hours before sunset, it's still too bumpy to fly. And sometimes as soon as 9 o'clock in the morning hits, you start getting thumped pretty good and you got to get down quick. So flying during the day, middle of the day, just isn't something we really, at least I don't consider. So yeah, the day of the eclipse, I woke up and I looked at my phone. I saw it was forecasted to be like 10, gusting 14, I think. It was much less than what it had been forecasted at. It was still high, but it was looking like it might be safe enough for regular wind. Midday flying, it would still be out of the question, but we were kind of just counting on the eclipse, helping thermals die down, like the shading of the ground and everything to keep the heat away. I think I looked it up and saw that it was supposed to cool up to 15 degrees from what it normally is during totality. I don't know that I noticed the temperature drop too much. I think it was probably all the adrenaline. But when I left to go to the airfield, it still looked questionable. I spoke to another buddy, Eric. Eric was able to go with me, and he was on the fence. He didn't think it was going to happen, and I had no idea. I was just hopeful it was going to happen because that all morning it was overcast too. So that was the other thing. So being overcast, I was thinking that at least help keep the ground cool as well. And right as I loaded up and was leaving, started to see the sun peek out just a little bit. Started getting some broken clouds. It's a 45-minute drive for me to the LZ. I got there and I was getting closer. Clouds are opening up a little bit more. But right as we're getting to takeoff time, we couldn't see the sun again. So just kind of hit or miss. But the winds, they were dying down significantly. They weren't forecasted to die down at all in windy and the other apps, but I also figure, a total eclipse doesn't happen very often. They probably don't account for that. And yeah, I ended up taking off with Eric and Don. So three of us took off about 1:30, 1:28, 1:30. Totality here was at 1:40. And we talked about it beforehand. We weren't sure, again, with thermals or what all could be kicking off. We just wanted to play everything safe, so we all ended up getting on B wings. I think I normally fly a Sirocco 3 with Roadster 3 instead. Eric flies Hadron and a Warp, I think, and he opted to go with a Charger. So we all just got on really basic wings, and we weren't planning on going very far. Just wanted to try and get up off the ground. And it was crazy smooth. I mean, when I had to do a forward, which is always how it goes, you clip in for reverse. Got to do a forward, but as strong as the winds were, it's pretty wild to have to do a forward right as the eclipse was happening. Yeah, so it took off and got off the ground about 10 minutes prior to totality. And again, it was kind of close. I mean, I think that's how we're all planning it, just because we weren't sure how long we wanted to be in the air. So it took off 10 minutes before totality, climbed up, and it was super smooth, not a single bump the whole time. It was ridiculously good. And then I took about 400 feet or so, and yeah, right as totality started, the clouds broke open right then. I saw the sun for maybe like 20 seconds the whole flight, and it happened right as totality started. It was really awesome. So yeah, and I was just flying along and made some pretty goofy faces. I was sharing those on Instagram because I thought it was pretty funny. Like I didn't really realize I was reacting the way I was, but it was a lot of fun. I think, see, I've got put some pictures on Instagram. I also got them on my computer here. See if I can share them if you want to see. See which one to play here first.
I think it's the present feature on the bottom.
Yeah, let me find that. Where are they? Screen.
I was actually curious about, you mentioned the wing. I think it's a good call going with the, more basic wings for conditions like that.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I've been having some issues with my knee too, and so I haven't flown as much lately as I wanted to. So I've actually switched to it the last couple of flights just to see how it was, and the Roadster was awesome. Really liked it. But yeah, let me actually rewind that part right there. So that was like right when totality hit. You kind of see the ground behind me. This isn't the best video for that one. I'll show the other one, but the ground is still fairly bright. And then here in about just like 5 seconds, it just gets crazy dark, and in the main picture you can see the sun just kind of dims there. A few more seconds here. I think I've got the picture I took from my phone, which I'm glad I did, because I don't think, oh, this doesn't even have it. It must be another video. Let me see if I've got another picture. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, I did an overlay with a picture I took with my phone. I guess it's a different one. Got one more here. I mean, not that everyone even needs to see this, because we all know what the eclipse looked like at this point, I'm sure.
So in the meantime, while you're looking for that, I'm going to do a little commercial on, is it Paramotor Brandon or Brandon Paramotor Brandon?
Oh, yeah. Paramotor Brandon on Instagram.
He apparently owns paramotorplugs.com.
I do.
And you can go to paramotorplugs.com, and he has a website, and take you to it right now. Want to explain that a little bit, Brandon?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, paramotor plugs, basically they're just airbox and exhaust plugs. I keep my motor in my office, and it gets pretty fumy at times. I mean, some people say they don't have any smells in their paramotors at all, but my airbox gets pretty gasoline smelly. Probably didn't have a carb tuned right or something. I don't know, but it always smells like gas. So I made these plugs that seal in place. They work really well for people that keep their motors inside or drive with them inside your vehicle. Not that I would recommend doing either one, but if you're going to, it'd be nice to have a plug, and so that's why I made it. One of my other friends, he actually flies helicopters. He does like medevacs, and he used to drive to the LZ with his motor taken apart in his car. I guess technically he still does. And one time he told us that, I mean, I don't know, one time we got out of his car and it smelled so bad, like we could smell it, like we were wondering how he was able to drive because the fumes were so strong. Anyways, I gave him some air motor plugs for his airbox, and it stopped the smell. It worked pretty well. So, anyways, yeah, they're great if you got the problem. Some people also use them to keep insects and things like that out. But
There you go, paramotorplugs.com.
yeah,
Shout out! I got them in both of our
nice.
both in the exhaust and in the airbox on both of them. That's how we traveled across 13,000 miles or 3,000 miles. Sorry, but
That's awesome.
we keep them in.
How about that?
Good to see they didn't fall out either. That's awesome.
Well, they're also good for keeping the dust out because we go down dirt roads all the time and it just gets so dusty behind the vehicle. So it just kind of keeps dirt out of the system as well as out of the airbox.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. I appreciate that.
I'm gonna have to get me some. I keep my motor inside too, and there's times that I walk in the house, I'm like, man, good old two-stroke. So I'm for sure gonna have to get some. And then I'm making my way to Bad Apples this year, and I'm gonna break my motor down and put it in the car, so that'll be really helpful. I'll have to grab me some.
Yeah, do it. I only have them for the Moster 185 and the Atom 80. I also have for the Factory R. I had some requests for the Sky motors, but they're hard to fit those because I couldn't get my hands on an airbox. So I was making plugs and sending them out and mailing them back and forth, and finally got them to fit, but I didn't quite like the way they turned out. So it's kind of tricky to do motors like that. But anyways, yeah, got a few on there.
Definitely worth having though, because we've been down a lot of dirt roads and had to shove microfibers in the airbox and try to plug them up. So when I saw Brandon's page, I was like, oh my god, I need to have these for us because we just travel so much with so many things that can fly into our airbox or exhaust. So it was shout out Brandon.
Yeah, thanks. It's awesome.
What is the material they're made of?
They're TPU. I 3D print them. I designed them myself, and I 3D print them. And TPU, it's like a flexible. I mean, actually, like cell phone cases. A lot of cell phone cases, the flexible cases are made from TPU. But it's advertised as being chemical resistant and it's flexible, soft, so it kind of fits into place pretty well.
That's very nice. Very cool.
Bill H says he's buying some right now.
Wow, thanks, Bill. So it's supposed to turn into a Paramotor Brandon's infomercial, but I'll take it. Yeah. Actually, while we're talking about it, yes, those streamers. I make the streamers myself because the only ones that were in that size that I saw were like a keychain style. There's really thick ones.
Yep.
And I've got one on my keys. That's one Tucker got, so I like it. But like for streamers, it doesn't work very well because the wind can't blow it. They're kind of short. So I ended up making it myself, custom size. So it worked pretty well in the wind and everything.
Oh.
Oh wow, you guys got a dog. That's awesome.
It's like, go, Dad, go. Were you able to find those pictures, Brandon?
I'm sorry. I was showing one of them, and then I realized that it wasn't showing while you're showing the website. Let me go back to it. You're just letting me run away with my Paramotor stuff. Paramotor stuff. All right, here we go. So this is one picture of. Let's see, where's here. This is the one that I took with my phone while I was looking at it. I mean, I didn't think the phone would do it justice. I wasn't really too worried about it. I was just like, whatever. I'll just take a picture if I can. I'm glad I did because it's pretty cool. The Insta360 didn't do it justice at all. I'm sure the GoPro didn't do it justice either. I haven't looked at the GoPro yet. But that was pretty cool. I saw that from the air, and that was, like I said, right as the clouds broke. Saw it just for a few seconds. There's another picture I took here that my flash, I had it set to like not portrait mode, but like a selfie mode, and I had the flash turned on. I didn't realize it, and I hated it because it kind of blinded me for a second. But it's the only picture I got that really kind of shows how dark it really was. It's pretty cool because it lit me up, and then all the other pictures without the flash, it's doing like HDR and trying to like make the picture as bright as possible. So it didn't really do it justice. But this picture, I think I'm sharing now, that one shows how dark it actually got there for about 4 minutes. But yeah, got a few other pictures here. Let's see. This is again, the Insta360 didn't do a very good job picking this up because it just doesn't do very well in the light. Trying to figure out the best way to switch windows here. I'll just do this, I guess.
So Duckspit's asking specs on the strobes, 24 volt. What battery are you guys using?
Mine is actually it was 24 volt for this flight. I switched back to a 12 volt to try and get more life out of the battery. This is something I've been working on for like a year. I actually want to sell these at some point, but mine is 12 volt. I'm using a Milwaukee drill battery. It's a 12 volt drill battery, really compact. It'll last for about an hour and a half, 2 hours of continuous strobing on that battery, and it charges in 30 minutes. And that's with 2 strips of LEDs, one in the front and on the back.
That's a neat picture.
That's neat.
Yeah, that was one of my goofy faces I was making when I was looking at the Corona. But yeah, that's the strobe I use. What does everyone else use?
We just have these little bike ones that are supposed to go around handlebars for a bike. That we've honestly not flown past sunset, so we had never needed strobes before this, so we just kind of picked a cool thing. But your whole hoop makes me want to get a big strobe for mine, and I'm like, that would be so freaking cool. And then honestly, your Insta video, I had seen your zoomed out. I hadn't because you gotta sit there and you gotta do the snap and like follow yourself and record it for the full 5 minutes every 5 minutes, and so I hadn't done that view yet until I saw yours, and I was like, oh, I want to have mine look like that. So I zoomed out and just held it there. So if it wasn't for your video, my video wouldn't have come out the way it did. Nice. It would have had me facing and then had the strobe, which I'll still post some of those clips, and I'm doing a little edit for that. But yeah, your whole view of it zoomed out from the top of the world look was not going to happen if it wasn't for yours.
Yeah, I'll pull that one up here in a second too. Let me see if I can find out.
As far as the question on strobes, I have these that I got off Amazon, and they have remote control. Came as a 4-pack. I got one in each wingtip and one on my helmet in the reserve. They last so far about 2 hours. So I turn them on and off.
Yeah, it got pretty dark. My buddy Eric, he's flying in here somewhere. I don't know if you'll be able to see him or not, but he's got a strobe that's pretty bright in the main video. When I saw it from the air in the darkness, I thought he was an ambulance or something on the side of the road because of the rate it was flashing. It looked like it was green. He said there wasn't any green in it. He says it's just, I think, red and white, but from a distance, it looked like some kind of ambulance or something. It's kind of crazy. Oh, there he is. You see him on the bottom left there. He's gone again. Yeah, the 3 of us flew at the Texas field. We had me and Eric took off, and then Don took off. But once we were in the air, Don realized he didn't have a strobe, and he was worried about it, so he came back down before totality. So only 2 of us flew in the Dallas area in totality.
I saw that there were a lot of skydivers that had done Spaceline Dallas. How close were you to there?
Just south of there, actually, about 10 miles. My normal everyday flying spot, we actually sometimes go around their field. But yeah, I wasn't close enough. So this was in Farmersville, and they are in, I think they're in, oh shoot, what's it called? It starts with a W. Can't think of it right now. If Chad's still in the chat, he could tell us. He knows that whole area. But anyways, yeah, it was like 10 miles north of there. But I didn't see any of them. We were too far. We were plus too many clouds and stuff.
Yeah, we were deciding between a couple different places. Originally, we were going to end up in Maine, and then like 2 days before we decided New York, just with the wind conditions and thermic activity in uppers. And one of the places we were potentially going to end up was skydive the falls over in Buffalo. That was one of the areas, but the day before it just was a lot gustier than what it looked like in Oswego. But that was a big thing that we got prepped on was watch out for like once you launch, like you have to be launched before like 20 minutes before totality minimum, and have to be away from the airfield and as far as you can, and have your aviation radios and be able to communicate and talk to them. And we're getting set up for this big hole because there was like apparently 10 other paramotor pilots that were supposed to go there. I'm not sure if they actually did it on fine or not because we were only invited from another person to go over to skydive over the falls. But that was something I was worried about too. I was like, wait, is there a skydive center near Oswego? Because I was like, I don't want to run into any skydivers during this either. But I was just curious.
Yeah, it's funny enough. I actually saw the planes and stuff. One of the reasons why I wanted this strobe is because moving near Dallas, there's a lot of air traffic around. I see most flights. I see Cloud or Cessnas flying around, and I was flying with strobes that were probably adequate, but flying during the daytime, I mean, most strobes aren't visible at all. So one thing is just a little bit brighter. So I went with a bigger one. And during the eclipse, I was expecting a lot more air traffic. I didn't see any planes at all in our area, at least. They were a little too far.
One of the other places we were going to go to was an airport near Plattsburgh, I think. But it was just a public airport, but it was small. But they were having like this whole registration thing to where you like paid for a parking spot and then you were allowed to be on the field. But they said that they already had over 50 registered aircrafts. And I'm like, 50 registered aircrafts? Do I want to be in the sky near 50 registered aircrafts? No way. That was another reason why we got deterred from going that way. Because I was like, you really want to be in the sky with 50 other people? I know we're not, because we weren't sure if we were going to go 13,000 feet or not. Like that was just kind of a game time day decision of like, oh, let me see if I can get above them. Because Wendy was saying that they were like at 15. So it was like, oh, if I can just get to 16, I'll be above them. But ended up not, only getting to 13.5 at max altitude. But I do have, I'm working on this right now. I'm gonna be doing a voiceover over it, but I have my GoPro video that really shows the darkness of it. So I don't know if it'll work, but it's at 20x. But so right here it was starting to get that first part of darkness, and then it goes straight to totality where it gets absolutely pitch black.
Oh my gosh.
So I couldn't see in front of my face, really. Like, and like Jake was saying, he could see the lights on the ground. You could see the lights on the ground in the distance, but like you could not make out trees, you could not make out houses, you could not make out buildings. It was just like city lights. It felt like I was in outer space.
Was this at 13,000 or was your elevation here?
So I was at 13.5 when I cut my engine to idle, and then that's when I just idled down. So I was the lowest I was in that video was probably 12.9.
Wow. I wonder if that's why you
start. Did you start your descent during the eclipse, like when it got pitch black?
Yeah. So you got to turn off your mic. So I had the darkness was starting to come over, and then you see me let off the throttle. So as soon as it started to get dark was when I let off my throttle and just let it go and idle down. So I was still climbing up until it started getting dark.
That's awesome.
That's wild. I kept commenting on your video, like it's crazy how you have like the golden light ring around the edge. It's like, man, how did you do that? Because you still had clouds, but 13,000 feet, that'll do it.
Altitude. I
Yeah,
really think it was the altitude because
sure.
you were saying that about your video, and I was like, well, he was in total totality too in Dallas. So I was like, how did his video not do it? And I kept replaying mine, and it's not edited at all. It's just the Insta360 video with it snapped. I didn't do any color filter or anything to it. So it's like, how did mine get the gold? And the only thing Jake and I could come up with was that, yeah, it's just because I was so high, because Jake doesn't have an Insta on his paramotor and it just has GoPro stuff. But what altitude were you at, Jake?
I started totality right around 10.5, so I didn't get as high as you, just because I had a problem with my camera on the ground. So I would have liked to been a little bit higher, but my engine can only climb. I think I'm at like max full throttle 10 feet a second, so I only had 20 minutes.
Yeah, so even with his GoPro, he had like the golden edge, if you could see in his video. And so I really think it has to do with the altitude, because you said you were only at like 500 feet, right, or something like that.
Yeah, between 400 and 700 at the most. I'm not sure what was during totality because I wasn't paying attention, but I'm estimating about 500.
I'm curious what it would have turned out if you would have gotten higher than
Yeah,
that.
honestly, the cloud base. So when I got up, it was like 7 to 900 feet. But right when I was taking off, or just before I took off, I saw overcast at 1,200 feet. I don't know if there were any clouds above that. If I had found a hole and gotten up, then it probably just been a clear blue sky, which I probably would have just gone for. But in the end, I mean, the cloud shots were actually kind of cool. So
See,
not
that's
sure.
what I was going for too. I was like, oh, I just want to get above them. I want to get above them, because I kept seeing the little pockets in the sky, and I was like, oh, perfect chance. I can get it. I can do it. I can be warm enough and get above them. And it just, by the time totality was coming, and I kept checking my phone time, and I was like, oh, it's 3:19. Oh, it's 3:20. It's gonna start like any second. That's when I was like, all right, we're done chasing the cloud to get above it, because I thought that would have been the coolest shot, to like be above such a thick layer of clouds with like little pockets and the mushroom type tops, and having totality and shining on the clouds. I thought that would have been the coolest thing ever. But I'm still grateful for the experience I had.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Jay. You're in Texas, right? Austin?
Actually, I'm further south. I'm actually south of San Antonio, down in Divine. I'm about 40 miles south.
Okay.
We were pretty clouded in, low ceilings. I was gonna fly. Winds were perfect. I was looking at my front pasture, was telling Kat, I was like, I'm gonna look at my motor. I think I'm gonna try to go. And about that time, we started getting really gusty, and the clouds actually dropped a little bit. So I went and grabbed the kiting wing, and we just kited. She got some kiting practice in. And right at totality, right when everything got dark, cloud opened up just for a brief second. We could see it, and then closed back up again. And but we had our winds down here. We were probably 9 gusting 17. So I fly on a B wing. I'm on a oh Lord, Spider 3. So for me, I don't mind the higher winds, but in my area with all the trees, the rotor would have been just horrendous getting up. I was able to fly on Sunday. I got a good hour flight in around the town, so that was a lot of fun. And perfect weather, great launches. It would have been. I would have loved to have had that weather and that clear sky for the eclipse, but it just didn't work out. But me and Kat still had fun. We grabbed the wing and went out and got at least to control the wing for a little bit, so can't complain.
I actually trained near San Antonio. I trained with Ron at Lone Star. Did you train at Lone
So
Star?
did I. Yep, I sure did actually. So did Kat. She's still working towards her PPG, I think her 2 on trike. She started out foot launch and she's switched over to trike. So we are in a market for a trike for her at the moment. So I picked up my gear, now I gotta get her gear. So
Very
and
cool.
then clear her pasture so she'll have a place to roll for takeoff.
So where did everybody else train?
I trained with Mitch at Lake Tahoe paragliding, but it's actually Art who mainly trained me. One of the trainers, Art. They're out of basically Reno, South Lake.
All right. Michelle?
I trained with Predator Paramotor, Chris Lolbert, and while I was training, Ryan Glauca from Texas Paramotor was in.
All right.
I trained with Jake. He had taught me with Art taking over the later. Your mic's on, I think, Jake. Sorry, it was echoing. I trained with Jake primarily. He taught me everything until like tweaking my habits of sort. Art had came in there, his trainer. But we're all good friends and everything.
That's very cool.
It's kind of crazy. My first flight was in Buckeye with Jake, and I was not prepared to get up, and I had belly slid in my landing. I didn't know how to get into the seat right, and I came in and belly slid across the ground. And Jake has a video of coming up to me, Samantha, what'd you do wrong? You forgot some of your training. And I'm just like, I didn't mean to. Well, I also came from skydiving, so I had experience under like a canopy and landing and stuff, but I had just not gotten into the seat my first flight. Uh, for some reason, I don't know. That's the only time it ever happened was that first flight that I couldn't get into the seat correctly. So my arm was like numb when I came in for landing, so I didn't flare like at all, so it was just like a belly slide in. Motor was fine, engine was fine, canopy was fine, but it's just kind of funny.
First flight bloopers.
Eugene, where did you train?
I trained in Florida. Two schools were involved in my training. Paramotor Academy with Eric DeFore and Paramotor Orlando with Jonathan Carr. So that was at the time when they both worked together, and I trained with them. I started my training with. So I wanted to do foot launch when I first started my training, but I was so out of shape, so bad. So I started with wheels, and then over time, I started kind of building up the strength for carrying the motor on my back, and eventually, I now do both. So, but it's still always work in progress. There's always more to learn. There's always little things here and there to tweak and improve on. So I'm kind of still consider myself always in training. There's always something to learn from everyone. So yeah, that's the short story.
Deweese, what about you? Where did you train?
I trained two schools. I started with Florida Flight Sports and I finished with Northern Lights.
And then I trained at Mad City Paragliding. It was a partnership with a paraglider and a paramotor instructors. So my husband and I did that. So
Wow, so everyone went through like a full-on school. What did it look like with days? Was it like the 12-day course type of thing, or was it just whenever you got out with your trainers?
for me and Eric, it was because we were 2.5 hours away, and I worked weekends and weekdays in law enforcement. We would just go down on my off days. So it took like 2.5 months, so. And then when Eric got done training foot launch, I was just doing trike. And when I was finishing up, he's like, I think I'm going to learn trike. So he became both and then eventually became an instructor. So
Jade, where are you out of? Like, where was that school?
Madison, Wisconsin, southern Wisconsin. So
My training was similar. I was about an hour from the airport where the training happened, so I went there for however long I could afford in terms of time. So I would take sometimes a couple of days in a row, 3, 4 days in a row. It was over the summer too, and I with my job, I'm able to be more available in the summer because I teach, so I can choose not to teach over the summer. So I made myself available as much as possible, and but I never really left. I just continued to show up and just learn. So I stuck around and I helped us with new incoming students and did that for over 2 years. So,
So
but like,
how long did it take you from finding out about paramotoring and then like touching the kite for the first time
oh
to
my
actually getting
goodness.
in the sky?
So I'm not the best person to ask this question because I first learned about paramotors about like what 11 years before I actually started flying them. So I kind of held on to that dream for a little too long. I first saw like my first paramotor. I was on the beach in Florida many years ago, and I didn't even know what I saw. So it took me a long time to figure out what that was, like what even keywords to like Google to find out what, where to start with that. There was a lot of, obviously, I found a lot of things about paragliding, but powered paragliding took me a while to find. And then, of course, life got in the way. I got married, had a kid, and started a PhD. I was full time employed for like throughout this whole thing. And it wasn't until after COVID that I needed to do something for myself. And this was in the back of my head for years. So I went and started it. But I was in aviation my entire life. My dad was a flight instructor. So he taught me how to fly when I was 13. And I was just like, I grew up at an airport. So this was just kind of, like the form of aviation that I chose for myself is how I see paramotoring.
I also did some trike training with Kyle Oakley. I forgot about that.
A Lone Stars program is a 10-day. It's a standard 10-day program. I went through the 10-day and then ended up coming back every chance I could for about 2 months to get to my PPG to fly off my time, and picked up my gear shortly after that.
I have some interesting facts about the eclipses I'd like to share.
okay.
The longest eclipse in history that we know of was in 743 BC, and it was off the coast of Kenya and Somalia, and it lasted 7 minutes and 28 seconds, which that's a long time. And then ours lasted, the one yet on the 8th was 4 minutes and 28 seconds, and it was in Mexico. That was the longest one here, and it was the longest one in North American history. And the next one will be in August 12th, 2045. So I know I won't see that one. I'll be gone by then, but you guys will be old yourselves by the time the next one comes around. So I thought that was pretty interesting to know the longest one was 7 minutes. I didn't know they would last that long.
I think I saw the one in 2045 supposed to be 6 minutes long in the U.S.
Is it really?
Oh, really? Wow.
I think I saw it yesterday. I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. I think there's gonna be a shorter one in 2044 maybe, but then like the really big ones in 2045 that's 6 minutes.
How old are you, Brandon?
I just turned the big 40.
So you'll be 65
Yeah,
in
I'm
25.
going into the 10 years before my legs have to be replaced, so I don't know if I'll make it.
Trike by that point.
Yeah.
Well, if
Fine.
you're willing to travel, there will be a few of them sooner than that.
Oh yeah, they're all around the world.
Yeah, there's one in Spain in 2026, in Egypt in 2027, Australia 2028.
How do you guys travel with your paramotors? Like, have you
Oh my goodness.
does
I
anyone
have the
have
best
experience
story.
traveling out of the country?
Yes, yes, yes. I've done it a couple of times. So I've done it I've done it twice successfully so far, and one time it didn't make it through. Um, so the couple of times that I did it, both times obviously you have to clean it very, very well. It cannot smell like fumes. You have to remove any smell or its trace of fuel in it. And for my Atom 80, I usually travel with my Atom 80 because it's just a very basic engine. Like there's just not a lot of things to break there, so it's really a workhorse. And it's also very small and light, so it's a very good motor for travel. So for the Atom 80, I also drained the gear oil, so don't forget about that one. So the first time I flew, I traveled with my motor. I took off the exhaust, the airbox, but I kept the motor on the frame, and I put everything in one big bag, reinforced it with cardboard all around, labeled it. Made sure like when I checked it in, it was oversized baggage, and it was. I told people at the airport that this was sports equipment, what sport paragliding. So not all airports ask a lot of questions. When one airport asked the official asked a lot of questions, eventually he said, "Yeah, I know it's paragliding equipment, but what's in this bag? like tell me exactly what's in this bag." So I was like, "Yeah, it's a motor." I just told him the truth. And I said it's a motor, but it's been cleaned. There's no trace of fuel or fumes or anything. So I was just completely honest, and it still went through. So I had no issues that one time, but it was obviously one big bag, oversized, so it cost a couple $100 a leg to travel with it. Um, the next time I tried to travel with it, that's the one that didn't work. They stopped it in Orlando, so that's like at the very beginning of my trip. And that time I had wrapped it in bubble wrap so they could not see what's on the inside, which the first time I didn't do that, they could just unzip it and see what's inside. And I think that actually helps when they can look at it and make sure that it's clean, and they can smell it and things like that. So the second time when I wrapped it up, it didn't go through. They stopped it right in Orlando. The third time, which was actually just a couple of weeks ago, I took it to Egypt. And this time I took it apart completely to the point where it fit in two regular suitcases. So, I mean, I didn't even have to say anything. I just checked in the bags. Both of them were under the weight limit, and both of them were just very regular looking suitcases, and had no issues. So, loved it. I think this is how I'm going to travel with my motor going forward, just completely.
How long did it take you to put it back together though? And then to
Well,
take it apart again on the way home?
I know. I have a secret weapon. It's called having an engineer for a fiance. And he totally took care of that part. Even though I can do motor work to an extent, but that motor was broken down very, very small. Like I'm not kidding. There were parts that were in Ziploc bags. So so like he broke it down that far, and he was the one that put it back together, so I'm very grateful that he was able to do that. I don't think we needed to break it down that far, though. It just needed to be broken down small enough to fit into the suitcases. So that's kind of a lesson learned. So Craig has a question. What about the fuel tank re-smells? Well, that's another really cool feature I have on my paramotor that I travel with. It's on a SkyMax Star frame. And if you know that frame, it has a soft tank. So I just clean it up, wash it a few times, and then roll it up so all the fumes are out. And then I put it in a sealable bag. So it just like there is nothing there. It's literally vacuum sealed. So nothing. Oh, and there was the comment before that was about dryer sheets. Yes, I stuffed dryer sheets everywhere. In fact, now when I go into my laundry room and I smell dryer sheets, I think of all the beautiful destinations that I flew at. So yeah, definitely strong association there. But yeah, it is doable, and I know a lot of people who travel a lot, and it seems that breaking it down to the point where it looks more like spare parts than a paramotor. That seems to work.
I've noticed in this community though, like I'm still very new to this community, that people are more than willing to rent you a paramotor in different parts of the country, or different countries in different parts of the world. Because I follow a couple people that went on that big Egypt trip. I saw a lot there, and they offered to let me come next time and rent a motor from them. And then a couple people in like Rio de Janeiro, and just all over the world. I've reached out because I'm like, if I want to travel here, is there a way I could rent a paramotor from your school so I can fly over here so I don't have to bring my own? And it just seems very welcoming with the whole community.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually this last trip to Egypt that I went to a couple of weeks ago. There were paramotors available for rent. I still brought my own because I actually left it there. This was my spare one. The one I kept here is my Nitro 200. So the air consumption nitro. So now I have this motor in Egypt, and I'm actually Egyptian. I was born there, so I have my family there, and it's so easy for me to leave my stuff there. My sisters want to learn, so now I have a motor in Egypt. So yeah, you are welcome to to use my Atom 80 if you want to visit Egypt. It's going to be available.
I think it would be so cool to fly the pyramids. That's a bucket list fly. After seeing all those videos about it, 100% on my bucket list.
They are absolutely phenomenal. I grew up in Egypt, and it was still quite an experience flying over the pyramids. And I've actually flown over the pyramids, but not in a paramotor. Like before that, I had flown over the pyramids, in Cessnas and small aircraft and things like that, small single engine aircraft, and even like a hot air balloon. Like we've done a lot of sketchy stuff growing up. But just flying in a paramotor over the pyramids and just realizing, like you keep climbing and you realize just how big they are. It's an experience, and you realize how big they are, and then you realize how, like the other things, you realize how small but still very impressive the Sphinx is. Like you realize, just like in comparison, the Sphinx is pretty big, but still in comparison to the pyramids, you see like how in comparison it looks small, and it just like gives you even like an even stronger appreciation of how big and just massive the pyramids are. And then of course there are other places in Egypt that are amazing to fly at. We went to Luxor and flew over the temples there. So that was very, very special. The temples are beautiful, and you can actually see the structure of the temple, and like it doesn't have there's no roof or anything that prevents you from actually seeing the structure. It's as if you're visiting, but it's just all open and you're seeing the whole thing. And the Luxor temple was very beautiful. It was a sunset flight, so we got to experience the sunset over the Nile, and then there was the temple, and it's just like it's layers, it just keeps getting better. So definitely incredible.
Well,
but
next
if you want to fly in Egypt, my motor is there. I mean I made a commitment that my motor is available for my friends, so you wouldn't even have to rent it. It's there. If that's something that's on your list, I'm happy to help make it happen.
So next week,
Thank you for the offer. That's so great.
I think next week we're going to learn about Dr. G's trip over to Egypt. So
Yes. I have lots of videos. I've been posting stuff online, but There's so much more. It's like I'm gonna keep posting these until the next trip.
Send them to me and through Instagram too. I'd love to see everything, even if you don't
Yeah,
post it.
absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. I'll share
hey,
some with you.
before we, oh, hang on. Before we end, I forgot that Josh Marsh, I just saw his message, and he said that he had a video from the eclipse, and I want to share with you guys.
Oh, and he also got his PPG3.
Yeah, so congrats, Josh. I see he's still in
Congrats.
here.
Yeah, he's here, I think. Yeah,
So,
there he is. He's still
yep.
here.
You guys can see this?
Mm-hmm.
He's Joshua Marsh PPG. So if you want to.
Still ain't full totality yet. Now we are. Oh, that is amazing. There it is. There's totality. Woo!
Wow.
That's got to be amazing flying at night when you're not supposed to be.
Wait, is that
Woo! Look at the sunset all the way around. It's just light.
2,500 feet and like there are some clouds, so looks like you got a really nice.
Yeah, and sunset all the way around. That's weird. That's wild.
Sunset everywhere. That's awesome.
That's wild.
God, I hope I get that on camera.
I
Wow.
love the excitement.
So did anybody keep track of that plane that was trying to stay ahead of it? I know I was watching on YouTube for the kids at school, and they had talked briefly about the pilot that was traveling like at 600 miles an hour or whatever, trying to keep ahead of the shadow and stuff. So I don't know if they made it all the way up to Maine ahead of it or not.
Well, I don't know. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. So I just
think
want to
it's the
say,
master research plane.
yeah.
Before
Say hello.
I know we're getting pretty late, but I wanted to ask everyone who's going to Sun and Fun and who's going to Bad Apples.
I'll be at Bad Apples, so please, please come find me. I want to meet all the people. Come find me.
I definitely will.
I'm hoping when Eric gets his pilot license, we'll just fly down there.
Nice. That'll make it so much easier for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I do want to thank you all, and I want to say hi to everybody in the chat real quick. Josh says he's going to Bad Apples.
Awesome.
Duck Spit says $3 super sticker. John Wayne, Scuba's in here, Bill H, Walter, and Craig B from Down Under. C Smith 9008. Looks like a couple new people in here. Linda Anderson, Kramer. Kramer was supposed to join us too from Texas. And Extreme Pete from, I think he's Colorado. It's like our usuals in here, and everybody else that's not logged onto the chat. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. And if you guys can give us a thumbs up, so it helps share our story about everyone's stories on the eclipse. Trevor Steele's in here. Hello, Trevor, Deweese. Jay Land is in here and it's on the show. So if I didn't say your name, I'm sorry. There was a lot of chatter in here tonight. So just go outdoors and EB. Thank you all for joining. And like I said, next week we'll probably have Dr. G talk about her trip to the pyramids and everywhere else she went. So, and if anybody wants to be a guest on the show, just hit me up and we can do just a private show or a show with just you, as the guest. So private show, that didn't sound right.
A private show.
Well, thank you for having us. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you while you're driving, and drive back safe, okay?
Yeah. It was nice to meet all of you, the
Of
people
course.
that I hadn't met before.
Yeah, and everybody else, keep flying safe.
Were you
And
doing something with that secret word?
yeah, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Did anybody happen to see it? I showed it
Yes, I think some people did see it.
Okay, well, let's quick check. I almost forgot. Thanks for reminding me. Giveaway. Share screen. Let's see how many people got it right. 6 people entered it right.
All right.
So here we go. And Bill H., I'm getting yours out probably tomorrow. Oh, jeez. I'll stick something else in there too.
Good for you, Bill.
Good job, Bill. I didn't seal the envelope yet. That guy wins all the time.
It's rigged.
Yeah, rigged.
Per Travis.
So thank you guys. And Brandon, thank you for hanging out with us. Jay and Princess and Cowboy hanging out with us tonight. And last minute putting the show together. And Michelle also. I appreciate
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.
It's a fun show. Thank you.
Keep flying safe, guys, okay?
Good night, everybody.
Yep. See you later. Bye-bye.